Hey, this is Ryan of Happy Healthy Vegan. So one question I've been asked literally like hundreds of times over the past 4 or 5 years is, what are my thoughts about lab-grown meat? Am I going to eat lab-grown meat someday? Is lab-grown meat vegan, or is it okay for vegans to eat lab-grown meat? Is lab-grown meat even ethical in the first place? So I promise I'm going to answer all those questions in this video, but I think it'd be a great idea for all of us to get on the same page and try to understand what the heck is lab-grown meat anyway. And to help me out for this, I found this article by the Good Food Institute, which is generally a very trustworthy source, and this article is entitled "The Science of Cultivated Meat." So here's how lab-grown meat is made. It begins with acquiring and banking stem cells from an animal. We'll get to that in a second. These cells are then grown in bioreactors, and the cells are fed an oxygen-rich cell culture medium containing basic nutrients such as amino acids, glucose, vitamins, etc. As I covered in my video from about 4 years ago when lab-grown meat first became commercially available, there's a couple ways of feeding these cells. Some ways are more vegan than others, so I'm going to point you to that video because I went to a big discussion about that in that video. However, when you get down there, there's no way getting past that first step of acquiring and banking stem cells from animals. So I want to delve into that because is that like violating the ethics of what veganism stands for? So the good news is that this process of acquiring stem cells from animals doesn't require the animals to be killed or slaughtered. They're barely even bothered. According to this article here, they describe it as a minimally invasive procedure. However, the sentence continues on saying it is possible in some cases that stem cells were acquired from an animal that was just recently slaughtered. So that obviously violates vegan ethical principles, and I'm not sure if manufacturers are going to label their stem cell acquisition methods or not. So the big question is for us ethical vegans, so we can decide if we want to even consume lab-grown meat. We'll talk more about that desire later on. But anyway, the big question is, given that it's a minimally invasive procedure to acquire the cells needed to produce lab-grown meat, does that violate what veganism stands for? So let's look at the definition of veganism once again. And as we can see here, it's a stance against animal cruelty and exploitation. So if animals are just merely bothered in this procedure of acquiring stem cells from them, I don't see that quite fitting as being animal cruelty, but I do have issues with that being exploitative towards the animal. And that's because of the definition of exploitation, the act or fact of treating someone unfairly in order to benefit from their work. So I'm sure your average non-vegan watching is thinking I'm nuts. How could what I just described there as far as how they acquire those cells to be considered exploitative? Again, if we look at the definition, you're unfairly treating someone so that you can benefit. In this case, you're taking a living, breathing animal. Didn't give any consent for this, by the way. You kept the animal in captivity. You forced it to have a procedure, not to help it, like say it was an emergency veterinary procedure or even just a routine visit to the vet. This is a procedure explicitly to remove cells from its body and use those cells for human benefit. Again, let's look at the definition. This lines up squarely as being exploitative. And I'm not the only one that sees it like this. This article on Counterpunch entitled "How Lab-Grown Meat Could Bring an End to Needless Animal Cruelty." And they say lab-grown meat is not technically vegan because it involves using cells taken from living animals. While these animals are not killed in the process, the act of harvesting cells places lab-grown meat outside the realm of purely plant-based or vegan products. And this article raises a very fantastic point that I really want to make very clear here, is that the primary purpose of lab-grown meat is not to feed us vegans. It's not to give us a new vegan option. It's not meant to replace existing vegan options. I mean, we're just like 1 or 2% of the human population. That would be a pretty dumb business move, given how expensive it is to bring this kind of product to market. No, instead, their target demographic is the other 98% of humanity, people that eat meat, but they're targeting a smaller subsection of that giant slice of humanity. They're looking for people that want to do something maybe better for the environment, but are unwilling to give up meat. So I think now we can safely answer 2 of the 4 or 5 questions I stated at the beginning of this video. Is lab-grown meat vegan? No, because it violates animals' rights and autonomy. It's exploitative by nature by taking living cells from them and humans using it for human food purposes. You don't have to eat meat. You can just eat plants and be healthy and get all the nutrients you need. Not just my opinion, that's the opinion of health organizations from around the world. And is lab-grown meat ethical? No. Why? Because everything I just said for the past 30 seconds. So I think the argument is pretty strong for the case that lab-grown meat is not for vegans. It's not appropriate for vegans. It doesn't align with our moral and ethical stance against animal cruelty and exploitation. So because of that, am I now an enemy, an opponent of lab-grown meat? Do I want to have it fail, not come to the marketplace? No, actually I think compared to traditional meat, there's some major benefits to be had. Let me explain. From that Counterpunch article, while lab-grown meat still requires keeping animals in captivity, the scale of this practice is drastically smaller than that of traditional factory farming. Instead of raising thousands, and I'll show you billions of animals in confined, inhumane conditions, cellular agriculture relies on small herds from which cells can be periodically harvested. So yes, these cultured meat producers will need to keep animals around to periodically remove these cell tissues from them. But as we saw there, the number of animals needed to be kept in captivity is in the order of thousands, not millions or billions. Remember that annually 80 billion land animals are slaughtered so that people can eat their meat. 80 billion! And back to that Good Food Institute article, they describe some of the benefits of cultivated meat that go beyond not having to kill billions of animals. They say cultivated meat is expected to have numerous benefits over conventional animal agriculture by nature of its controlled and more efficient production process. Let's skip down to the bottom here. That cultivated meat could reduce greenhouse gas emissions by up to 92% and land use by 90% compared to conventional beef. So one great land use benefit I immediately thought of if people were to eat more lab-grown meat is that they wouldn't have to chop down the Amazon to cut it down so they can have cattle graze on it, or at least grow soy to feed the cattle. So yes, for the 98% of humanity that's not vegan, and most of which are probably not going to go vegan, I think lab-grown meat is a huge win. Is it a perfect solution? No, but I think the benefits outweigh the negatives. I hate to take on a more kind of a consequentialist or utilitarian approach to my ethics, because that's not how I think at all. But I think here, if you add it all up, you know, they have to keep maybe a few thousand animals in captivity over time to replenish the cells so they can keep producing lab-grown meat, versus 80 billion animals killed every year so that people can eat meat. I do the math, and to me it seems like a pretty clear no-brainer, especially once you factor in the many environmental benefits, such as way less greenhouse gas emissions and not having to lose the Amazon rainforest. So in case you weren't clear about my stance about am I going to eat lab-grown meat? No, I have no desire to eat real meat, because that's the thing a lot of people don't fully grasp it. This is not like a Beyond Burger made out of pea protein and other plants. No, this is real, actual meat, just made in a new, innovative way. It's not like as a vegan, as probably most meat eaters fantasize, that I have some kind of desire or craving for meat or something weird like that. No, nothing of the sort. In fact, it's the opposite. I find meat gross, detestable. I want to vomit. It's not like something I look at, ooh, only if I could eat that, but I'm vegan, I can't do that. No, why would I want to eat something that makes me sick and gag? But even if I did not have such a horrible reaction to the sight and thought of eating meat, I still wouldn't eat it because of all the ethical reasons that I mentioned earlier in this video. But as always, I'm just giving you my thoughts, my opinion, my very well-reasoned opinion on the matter, but what I say doesn't have to be followed. I'm not like a dictator or anything like that. I'm not a cult leader, but I would like to hear your thoughts on the matter. What do you think? As a vegan, are you gonna eat it? Are you okay with the idea? You know, maybe you have a different twist on the ethics that I didn't think of. So please comment down below whether you're pro or anti, whether you're gonna eat it or not gonna eat it. And I promise you, if you reveal to me you're gonna eat it, I'm not gonna care. I'm not gonna call you a bad person. I'm not gonna make a video or anything like that. I'm just giving you my thoughts about it. So comment down below without fear of any retaliation from me or anything of the sort. If you like this video, hit like, share this video, and if you want to help support our channel, subscribe, hit the notification bar, and and just buy one of our shirts, because it sure doesn't suck being vegan. I'll put a link to our tea store right up here for you. And we have a whole bunch of other cool shirts too, including even being a vegan cult member. And if you agree with my opinion, or if you disagree with my opinion, feel free to comment down below, or even better yet, come to my next live stream. They're every Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And just be civil and chill, and we could probably have an engaging conversation. So until then, guys, I look forward to seeing you all there. And remember, doesn't suck being vegan.